everybody, welcome to After Prison Show. And the first thing that I want to start by saying is thank you to everybody who sent something to the P.O. box. Me and Cody actually just went there this morning and there was a lot of stuff in there. In today's video, I am going to tell you about the top 10 prison hustles that you can have, how you can make money, or how individuals in prison make money while they're incarcerated. So without further ado, what do you say we just go ahead and dive head first into this video. Now, the first thing that I want to say as we get started with these prison hustles is that when you are locked up, when I have been locked up, and when anybody is locked up, it can only help to make your time that much better, easier, and more comfortable if you have some sort of a hustle and some sort of a way that you can make money. Now, in certain states and different institutions, getting a prison job may or may not be that easy of a thing to do. Certain states may require that you have a job, and with those jobs probably pay you little to absolute nothing. I'm talking about literally like cents on the dollar. And in every prison that I have ever been in personally, prison jobs range anywhere from like 12 to 15 cents an hour up to, at the very most, like 85 cents an hour. And with those higher paying prison jobs that pay anywhere from like 45, 55, upwards of 85 cents an hour, those jobs aren't that easy to get at all. And with this being mentioned, you have to imagine that while locked up, if that is all that you have to rely on is some sort of a state job that's really not paying you that much money at all, you may only be making something like $15 to $20 per month. And I have to assure you that $15 to $20 a month is certainly not going to be easy to survive on at all. You're going to need to buy new hygiene items like at least once a month, and that's going to take up a good majority of that $15 to $20 a month that you may be making with your prison job. So you're really not going to have any money left over to go buy your little zooms and whams, your ramen noodles, your chips, your sodas, your candy bars that may be left on your pillow. If you ever see a candy bar left on your pillow in prison, do not eat it. Yeah, because if somebody leaves a candy bar on your pillow, that's definitely a telltale sign that they're trying to take you on some sort of a prison date. But getting back on track here, having a prison hustle is most certainly going to make your time a hell of a lot more easy and comfortable, especially if you don't have any sort of outside support whatsoever. And for a lot of guys in prison, in fact, I was one of those such guys for like the first 5 years of my incarceration who did not have any sort of outside support whatsoever. Having some sort of a prison hustle is an absolute necessity to surviving being locked up. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about the very first prison hustle making the list in this video, and that is actually cutting hair. Now, while in jail or prison, they do have jail and prison barbers. These are people who are either trustees who are cutting hair, that's their trustee job is to cut hair, and they go cut like the entire jail population's hair. Or in prison, these guys have prison jobs where their job is actually to do basically the same thing, except in prison. But even with the fact that jails and prisons offer barbershop jobs to certain prisoners at like every single institution pretty much, not every prisoner who knows how to cut hair is going to be able to get those jobs. Because one, they only have so many spots available in these jail and prison barbershops, so there's really not going to be that many prisoners who are able to get these jobs. But there will be a ton of prisoners who claim to know how to cut hair. And I can assure you that not every single guy in prison who claims to know how to cut hair is actually going to be very good at it. In fact, out of all of the prisoners who claim to know how to cut hair, you're only going to see like a select few who are actually really good at it. And in a lot of cases, those prisoners don't even work in the barbershop for whatever reason. Again, maybe they just can't get a job in there. Maybe there's no positions available. So what they do instead is make it their prison hustle cutting hair. Because in most prisons, prisoners are able to order their own set of beard trimmers. And these prisoners will use these beard trimmers to help their prison hustle, which is cutting hair. And what's even crazier is that in facilities where prisoners can't purchase beard trimmers from commissary, they'll actually use a razor blade and a comb to cut hair with. And I personally know of guys who have done like phenomenal haircuts using a razor and a comb. Also, something really quick to throw into all of this as well is how much a haircut would actually cost you if you were getting your haircut from a guy whose hustle was cutting hair. And usually in prisons, haircuts range anywhere from like $2 or $3 upwards to like $5 or $6. Now, if a prisoner's hustle is cutting hair and he's cutting 2 or 3 heads a day, well, he's actually making pretty good money. Next up on this list is kitchen thievery, meaning that there are prisoners who work inside of the prison kitchens and they are bringing things back into the housing units to sell those things. Whether it's onions, green peppers, real sugar, I mean, the list really just goes on forever in terms of what guys who work in the kitchen are able to get their hands on and smuggle out of the kitchen to sell back inside either the cell block or the housing units. Real sugar, which can be used to make prison wine. Flour, which can be used to make prison pizzas and different types of dough. And not to mention like the specialty foods, which is served to like the prison guards and the staff. Chicken sandwiches, real cheeseburgers, things like that guys will wrap up in saran wrap, stuff down between their Junie cakes and bring out and sell to the rest of the prison population. It's not the most pleasant of things to think about as far as how guys who work in the kitchen are able to get these things out of the kitchen to be sold to the rest of the prison compound. But when you're in prison and you're really not getting your hands on any sort of cheeseburgers or chicken sandwiches, you're not really thinking about the fact that they were smuggled out between some Junie cakes just for you to be able to enjoy. These guys who work in the kitchen take major risks every single day just in an effort to make a few extra dollars per day. Because when prisoners are going into and leaving from that prison kitchen, they are searched. Now, in most cases, they're just patted down, so if they've got anything hidden between their Junie cakes or tucked up underneath their man parts, there's a good possibility that it won't be found. But in some cases, these searches go as far as these guys getting strip searched. And while I was locked up, I knew of way too many guys who worked inside the kitchen who got knocked off, meaning they got caught coming out of the kitchen trying to smuggle things out of there. And then they're sent to the hole, they lose good time, they can even run their level up just because they're trying to make a few extra dollars while locked up. Stealing things out of the kitchen to be sold to the rest of the prison population is a good prison hustle, but it most certainly comes with a lot of risk as well. Coming in at number 8 on this list of prison hustles is fixing electronics. While locked up, prisoners are allowed to buy a few different electronic items. It used to be cassette players, radios, and CD players. Now all of that is being replaced with these MP4 players and tablets. But prisoners are also able to purchase other things like TVs and headphones. And you have to imagine that with the electronics being sold to guys in prison, these are not exactly your high-end electronic items. In fact, what they'll do is they'll go find the cheapest bullshit that they possibly can sell to prisoners, jack the price to the moon, and that's what guys in prison are able to purchase. And because of these items being so cheaply manufactured and the fact that these things tend to break like all the damn time, being a prisoner who is able to fix these items, whether they're able to fix TVs, headphones, if wires short out or speakers get blown, whatever the case may be, there are prisoners who know how to fix these things, and they actually make good money fixing electronics as their prison hustle. One, because of the fact that not many prisoners know how to fix things like electronics. In fact, I most certainly had no idea how to work on any of that stuff. Two, because of the fact that in a lot of cases, it's actually cheaper to pay a guy who can fix this instead of having to go buy a brand new TV or pair of headphones or whatever. And not only can these prisoners fix broken electronic items, in some cases they can even alter and make these items better. I've met guys in prison who not only could fix electronics, but they could also make freaking TV remote controls. They could make speaker boxes. I mean, these guys really were some smart guys who were locked up. And they also made good money because of that. Next up on this list is making candy. Now, I know I've talked about this in previous videos, but making candy in prison, though it may sound pretty childish, it's actually a really lucrative prison hustle to have. Guys in prison really like candy for some reason. They always have sweet tooth. So making candy in prison, it really can be a lucrative operation to have. In fact, while I was locked up, one of the crazier things that I saw was the fact that there were actual real prison gangs who were running the candy operation in these prisons. Like, they had the candy locked down. And you weren't just gonna come into this prison and think that you were just gonna start making and selling your own candy. Because these prison gangs, they were actually in control of the candy trade. It's the craziest damn thing I ever saw in my life. But I literally saw guys get beat up in prison because they came and thought that they were gonna try to start making and selling their own candy. But they were actually stepping on the turf of a gang, a real live prison gang like some Bloods or Crips or some Aryans who were already knee deep in the candy trade. You're not coming in here to make no candy. We're making all the candy in this prison, you hear? Number 6 on this list is what is referred to as a hustle man. Now, a hustle man is a middleman basically for anyone who is trying to sell anything at all. In fact, while I had my very own lucrative prison hustle that will make this list, I promise you, if you don't know what my major prison hustle was, it's coming up in a few minutes in this video. And with that, I needed a hustle man, a guy who would actually take what I had to sell and would go out there and sell it for me, tacking on an extra 50 cents or dollar to whatever it is, or maybe even more than that. That way, they make their money as well. And these hustle men, there may be 2 or 3 of these guys per prison, and these guys will actually be on the rec yard and they can get you basically any damn thing that you want. Hustlemen usually know where everything is at. So if you're looking for whatever, I'm not going to say anything specifically, but if there's just something in particular that you're really trying to get your hands on, let's just say it's a pair of shoes. And you don't want to buy these shoes from commissary because shoes on prison commissary can cost upwards of like $80. Well, a hustle man may be able to bring you the exact size damn shoe you need for a fairly decent price. But being a hustle man, there's also risk involved in that as well. Because these hustle men, well, they have to bring whatever it is that they're selling out onto the rec yard. In fact, that's where they do most of their business, is out on the rec yard. But just like with the prison kitchen, going out to or coming back in from the rec yard, you are subject to being searched. And let's just say this hustle man is carrying whatever it is that he's trying to sell out on the rec yard, and he gets caught carrying those things, and those things are confiscated, and he's sent to the hole. Well, that hustle man is most certainly going to owe somebody some money for whatever it is that he lost and whoever it is that that shit belonged to. Number 5 on this list. Being an artist in prison and being a good artist in prison, you can make all sorts of money using your art as your hustle. You've got portrait artists who draw pictures of guys' girlfriends or maybe their boyfriends in prison or maybe their kids out there in the free world. And I've seen some of the most phenomenal artists that I've ever met in my life actually while I was locked up myself. Portraits in prison can cost anywhere from like 10 to 50, even more dollars per portrait, depending on how good this artist really is. Now, you'll meet artists who will charge $20, $30, $40 for a portrait, and they're really not that good at all. You really do have to pay special attention to the kind of artwork that this person is creating, because there are some artists in prison who are more con men than anything at all. But again, art is a super lucrative hustle that you can have while locked up. Guys make special envelopes for their girlfriends. They make crafts. I've seen picture frames made out of chip bags, sculptures made out of soap, roses made out of Jolly Ranchers. I mean, the list just goes on with what these artists / creative individuals really can do and make good money doing this. There really isn't a lot of risk involved with art. That is, unless, you were to draw a picture of some guy's girlfriend and that picture came out looking absolutely horrible. That guy may want to fight you behind that. I have actually seen artists get beat up because of what the final product of that art actually looked like, especially when it has to do with portraits of whether it's a guy's girlfriend, his mother, his kids. Yeah, you really don't want to create some ugly art for a guy, especially when it's dealing with his family. They may want to kill you behind that. Number 4 on this list is gambling. And as we get closer to number 1 on this list, the risk really gets a lot higher with these hustles. But risk versus reward with these hustles, there can definitely be some very high reward, but you're definitely going to be taking a lot of risk with these hustles as well. And gambling most certainly is one of these hustles that you're going to begin to start taking some real risks with. Now, whether this is playing poker, shooting dice, or actually running some sort of a gambling parlay or sports ticket while locked up, again, there is super high risk involved in all of this, but there's also that super high potential for you making a lot of money while in prison. And just to throw this in there as well, one of the biggest things the guys fight over in prison has to do with gambling. Usually dealing with somebody owing somebody else some money and that person not paying or not being able to pay, and then they end up paying with their face being stomped into the fucking ground. I have seen plenty of guys in prison make serious money when it comes to gambling, but also on the flip side of that coin, I have also seen just as many guys lose serious money behind the same damn thing as well. And when guys lose tons of money behind gambling, I mean, things get really crazy. People end up getting jumped, people could be stabbed, guys start checking into the hole, running to the CO saying, "You gotta get me out of here, they're gonna kill me in here." Shit gets serious behind gambling in prison, especially when a lot of money's involved. Number 3 on this list is a hustle that I did myself for quite some time while locked up, and that's tattooing. Again, another high risk versus high reward hustle that you can have, but there is so much shit that comes with tattooing. Yes, you can make tons of money tattooing, but the crazy thing about it is there are tons of guys in prison who tattoo. Now, if you luck up and become like the only guy in a cell block or housing unit who does tattoo, then you do have a very high potential to make a lot of money. But even with that, and even with the fact that you may not have any competition in there with you, you will guaranteed, 100% guaranteed, have at least one hater-ass, spiteful motherfucker in there who may very well tell on you. And again, I know far too much about this from personal experience, from being told on by some hater-ass, spiteful motherfucker who just, for whatever reason, wanted to tell. Maybe because of the fact that they weren't making money themselves, or they were mad at the fact that I was in there tattooing and I was making money. For whatever reason, tattooing, yes, it is a very lucrative hustle that you can have while locked up, but unfortunately, there is so much bullshit and drama that comes from doing that as well. Getting told on, getting caught, getting shook down, having beef with other tattoo artists, having guys who don't want to pay you for tattoo work and then you have to fight them. I mean, the list, it really, really does just go on with the amount of bullshit that does come from tattooing while locked up. But the potential to make so much money with it is so high that guys like myself still go right ahead and risk everything in an effort just to have tattooing as their hustle. We are down to the top 2 prison hustles that you can have while locked up. And this first one that I'm about to tell you about, number 2, is in fact a hustle that I did myself that was, without question, the second most lucrative thing that you could do as a prison hustle while locked up. And if you have no idea what this is, I can promise that you will be surprised by this. But it is in fact selling porn. There are 2 things that make more money than anything else, hands down, while locked up. And the first one, without question, is porn. Whether that be magazines, photographs, DVDs, oh my God, if you get DVDs in prison, you are a god. And I myself was getting tons of photographs of porn while locked up, and you would not believe just how much money I was making off of these pictures. I'm talking anywhere from $3 to $5 per photograph, and I was getting like 150 pictures a week. I legit was a kingpin in prison behind porn. I ran a lucrative porn picture kingpin operation. And one thing about this hustle is that there are not going to be very many guys in prison who either can get their hands on the porn or can get the porn in. I know it sounds kind of sleazy me saying this, but I have to assure you, I'm really not a sleazy guy. I just knew what made money while locked up, and I was able to get my hands on it, and I can promise you once again, I made tons of money with porn while locked up. I mean, it was absolutely unbelievable. I was making thousands of dollars a month in prison with porn. I know, it really does sound crazy, but again, there are 2 things that sell more than anything while locked up, and one of them being porn, and the other one, of course, being the number 1 thing on this list of hustles that you can have while locked up, and of course, that would be drugs. It is. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Just like with the porn, there are not going to be a lot of guys who are able to get the drugs into a prison, but those guys who do, you will never know who they are because they will deal with 2 or 3 different people before that shit is actually sold into the prison, because that is how low-key that shit has to be kept. And these guys, they live like pure gods. Because if there are not but 2 things the guys want more than anything while locked up, it's 1, drugs, and 2, porn. Drugs and porn. I myself never wanted to have anything to do with drugs in prison because I saw just how detrimental the outcome could be when guys did get caught, either for dirty urines or having drugs in their possessions. I mean, you really got to imagine that being caught with drugs in prison, that is a big time fucked up thing to have happen to you. And you can rest assured that the charge that you catch for that could entail that you are actually taken out of prison, back to court, and charged with additional street charges and have more time tacked onto your sentence. Again, that was something that I never wanted shit to do with, and it absolutely scared the living shit out of me. But drugs, without question, are the #1 thing that sells more than anything else in prison. And as bad as it is, it's actually the most lucrative hustle you can have while locked up. Hey, look, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know exactly what you thought about it. Again, thank you to everyone who sent all of this awesome stuff for us today here on After Prison Show. And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world, never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day.